What if the entire global economy, your portfolio, your job, your future, was balanced on a single island you could barely find on a map? Over the past 2 years, the world has witnessed an explosion of artificial intelligence. The Magnificent Seven tech giants have pushed the stock market to record highs. Nvidia broke the $1 trillion mark. Analysts speak of limitless growth, infinite innovation, and a future powered entirely by silicon and code. For investors, it feels almost invincible. Earnings remain strong, valuations stretch higher, the charts keep moving up. But beneath that sense of stability hides something far more fragile, a single point of failure that most people have never thought about. Every AI model, every self-driving car, every data center humming in the background depends on a handful of ultra-advanced computer chips, the kind built at just a few facilities on Earth. And the company that manufactures nearly all of them is not Nvidia, not Apple, not Google. It is a firm most investors could not describe in a sentence. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. While Nvidia and Apple design their chips, only TSMC and a few others have the technology to actually produce them, using processes measured in nanometers, invisible to the human eye. And that production capacity, the beating heart of the AI boom, is concentrated in one place: the island of Taiwan, a region sitting at the center of the world's most dangerous geopolitical fault line. So here's the question: if that bottleneck were ever squeezed, by conflict, disaster, or politics, what would happen to the entire trillion-dollar AI party? To find the answer, we need to go inside the factory the modern world cannot live without. If the first part of this story revealed that the global economy balances on a hidden choke point, this is where we step inside it. Every piece of modern technology, from ChatGPT servers to Teslas and iPhones, depends on one essential component: the microchip. But not all chips are created equal. The world's most powerful ones, used in AI, cloud computing, and advanced electronics, are produced by a tiny number of companies with skills so rare that the entire digital economy now depends on them. Let's start with the difference between designers and manufacturers. Companies like Nvidia, Apple, Google, Tesla, Meta, Amazon, Qualcomm, and AMD design their chips. They build the architecture, the brain behind AI, the logic that drives your smartphone, or the neural engines inside a data center. But when it comes to actually producing these chips, they outsource the job. Because manufacturing chips at the leading edge, 3 or 4 nanometers wide, is a completely different universe. It requires machines that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, clean rooms purer than hospital surgery theaters, and engineers who treat dust like poison. That's where TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, comes in. TSMC doesn't invent chips, it fabricates them. It is the foundry where design meets physics. Using layers of silicon thinner than a human hair, TSMC etches billions of transistors with microscopic precision. The result is a chip so powerful it can train AI models, run supercomputers, or guide missiles. Here's the scale of dependence. Roughly 80 to 90% of the world's most advanced chips, including Nvidia's H100 GPUs, Apple's A-series processors, and the brains inside AI servers, are produced by TSMC. Samsung competes at the same level, but struggles with yield. Too many chips come out defective, driving costs sky high. Intel is rebuilding its foundry business, supported by the US CHIPS Act, yet it still trails years behind. Building a semiconductor fab isn't like opening a warehouse. It's closer to constructing a cathedral of light and precision. And TSMC knows its power. It intentionally keeps its most advanced manufacturing nodes, 3 nanometers today, 2 nanometers tomorrow, on home soil in Taiwan. The logic is simple. If the world depends on Taiwan's chips, then protecting TSMC means protecting Taiwan itself. This is not just business strategy, it's geopolitical insurance. But TSMC is only one part of the machine. Behind it stands another quiet giant, ASML, based in the Netherlands. ASML builds the only lithography machines capable of printing chips at the smallest scales. These EUV, extreme ultraviolet machines, are among the most complex devices ever created by humans. Each costs around $350 to $400 million, and there are only a few hundred on Earth. Without ASML, no one, neither TSMC, Samsung, nor Intel, can produce chips at 5 nanometers or below. ASML itself depends on Carl Zeiss in Germany, which produces the mirrors and optics inside those machines. These mirrors must be so perfectly polished that if one were the size of Germany, its tallest bump would be less than 1 millimeter high. Then there's Trump, another German firm that makes the high-powered lasers used in EUV machines. Add to this a web of suppliers for ultra-pure chemicals, silicon wafers, rare gases, and precision components. Together, they form a network of microscopic interdependencies. And if even one link fails, the entire system stops. Imagine a single contaminated batch of chemicals or a shipment of helium delayed at customs. That alone could freeze production lines worth billions of dollars. It's a supply chain where perfection is not an aspiration, it's the minimum requirement. Then comes the human factor. The engineers who run these fabs are not interchangeable. A veteran TSMC process engineer can sense a problem in a machine from the sound it makes. ASML field technicians fly across continents to keep EUV systems running, often sleeping inside clean rooms. This experience cannot be bought or replicated overnight. That's why new fabs in Arizona, Japan, and Germany, built with massive government subsidies, struggle to reach full performance. You can buy the machines, but you cannot import decades of expertise, culture, and precision thinking. And this dependency stretches into every part of daily life. The same chips used in AI models also power your phone, your laptop, your car's sensors, your home's Wi-Fi router, the satellites above, and the defense systems nations rely on. The world doesn't just use semiconductors, it runs on them. So when we talk about TSMC, ASML, and Zeiss, we're really talking about the hidden infrastructure of modern civilization, a chain of miracles that must never break. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This entire chain, the one that underpins the global economy, sits directly on the world's most volatile geopolitical fault line. And if that bottleneck were ever struck, how would the shock ripple through markets, industries, and nations? That's the question we'll confront next. Imagine this. One morning, markets wake up to breaking news. Chinese naval drills have encircled Taiwan. Shipping lanes are restricted. Satellite images show warships moving closer to the island's southern coast. There are no explosions, no invasion, just silence, uncertainty, and fear. Within hours, global investors start asking one question: what happens to the world's chip factory now? To understand why Taiwan matters so much, think of the world as having two baskets. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. Taiwan is the chip basket of the planet. If Ukraine's wheat feeds people, Taiwan's semiconductors feed the machines that run the global economy. For Taiwan, that dependence is both a shield and a risk. The world's reliance on TSMC, the company that makes the vast majority of advanced chips, has become the island's silicon shield. The logic is brutal but simple. Because everyone needs Taiwan's chips, everyone has a reason to keep Taiwan safe. But geopolitics doesn't run on logic alone. China has long declared that Taiwan is part of its territory, and President Xi Jinping has called reunification an historic mission. Over the past few years, Beijing has increased military exercises around the island, sending fighter jets across the median line, sailing warships through the Taiwan Strait, and rehearsing blockades. The United States, meanwhile, walks a tightrope known as strategic ambiguity, officially recognizing one China, while unofficially promising to defend Taiwan if attacked. Washington has also been preparing for a long game, strengthening alliances with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, selling weapons to Taipei, and, crucially, pushing to rebuild its own chip-making capabilities through the CHIPS and Science Act, which funds new fabs by Intel, TSMC, and Samsung on U.S. soil. Still, even with these efforts, the world's most advanced chip production remains concentrated in one earthquake-prone, politically sensitive island. So, what could actually go wrong? There are several scenarios, and none of them are good. Scenario 1. The soft blockade. China could impose a de facto economic blockade without firing a shot, by restricting shipping, inspecting cargo, or interfering with air routes. Even short disruptions would stall the flow of materials, halting production lines in Taiwan and delaying shipments of chips to the US, Europe, and beyond. Scenario 3. Limited conflict. Missiles or drones hit key infrastructure, not the fabs directly, but power grids, ports, or water supplies. Semiconductor manufacturing demands stable electricity and ultra-pure water. Take those out and the world's chip supply collapses in days. Scenario 4. Full-scale invasion. China crosses the strait, occupies Taiwan, and takes control of TSMC. The problem? Those fabs cannot simply be rebooted under new management. The machines come from ASML in the Netherlands, Carl Zeiss in Germany, and toolmakers in Japan and the US. If Western governments impose export bans, as they almost certainly would, those systems would lose technical support, spare parts, and software updates. The fabs might survive physically, but operationally they'd go dark, a living death for the world's most advanced technology. In every scenario, the consequences ripple outward. Nvidia, Apple, AMD, and other chip designers would lose their manufacturing base. Their product roadmaps collapse. AI development slows. Big tech stocks tumble. The so-called Magnificent Seven that have driven Wall Street's rally could lose trillions in market value. Then the pain spreads to the real economy. Automakers halt production for lack of chips. Defense contractors delay weapon systems. Telecom networks postpone upgrades. From consumer electronics to clean energy, everything that relies on silicon begins to seize up. Markets would shift overnight from FOMO, the fear of missing out, to panic. Confidence, the oxygen of capitalism, would vanish. A bear market could emerge not from a credit bubble or inflation, but from a supply chain suddenly cut in half. And this fragility isn't limited to chips. It's part of a larger pattern, what economists call single points of failure. Rare earth minerals are refined mostly in China. Neon gas, critical for chip-making lasers, comes from Ukraine. Silicon metals for wafers are produced in Norway. Even the lasers used in ASML machines rely on components from just a few European suppliers. Layer on top of that a shrinking global workforce of hardware engineers, while much of the West shifted talent towards software and finance, and the picture becomes clear. The system that powers our digital lives is stunningly concentrated. So no, the global economy won't collapse because AI is a bubble. It's far more fragile than that. It could crack because of the physical and political limits that underpin the illusion of infinite growth. The next time you look at a stock chart or an AI headline, remember, behind every glowing screen is a machine that can stop overnight. And if it ever does, the question won't just be about markets, it will be about how we rebuild a world that forgot where its technology truly comes from. Because the test ahead isn't about innovation, it's about resilience. That's where we go next. So, where does this leave us? The risk is real and enormous, but it doesn't have to mean the end of the world. The problem isn't AI or even TSMC. It's the way we've built an entire global system on foundations that are too narrow, too concentrated, and too fragile to carry the weight of our ambitions. Across this story, 3 pillars of vulnerability have emerged. First, the manufacturing bottleneck. A handful of companies, TSMC, ASML, Zeiss, and a web of suppliers for gases, wafers, and optics hold the keys to modern civilization. Second, the financial concentration. Trillions of dollars piled into a few AI-driven giants, turning markets into a mirror of their success or failure. Third, the geopolitical tension. As the West lost much of its hardware and engineering base, it grew dependent on regions it can't fully protect. From here, the path splits in two. In the worst-case scenario, we continue as we are, ignoring warnings, betting on endless growth, and trusting that nothing will break, until it does. If Taiwan or any key link in the chip chain falters, the shock would cascade through markets, industries, and jobs. The shortage of technology products would make 2020's supply crisis look like a warm-up. But there's another path. We can use this window to rebuild, accelerate new fabs in the US, Europe, and Japan, invest again in STEM education, especially in hardware and manufacturing, and move capital away from a few sacred tech stocks toward real, productive innovation. Because collapse isn't an explosion, it's the slow erosion of trust between technology, markets, and politics. Understanding that fragility is the first step toward resilience. So, the question is, if the entire economy can be threatened by a few invisible factories, how should we rethink our own beliefs, investments, and sense of security? In the next chapter, we'll look for answers and explore where the real escape routes might be in a post-AI bubble world.